to Fab After 50, and today I have with me Sarah Dale. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. And now, Sarah, I know you've just written this book, haven't you? Bolder and Wiser, which I think is out at the moment. And I know it says it's remarkable conversations with older women. So perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide to write this book at this particular time in your life?
Yeah. Well, it's two things really. One, first and foremost, is being that I'm 49 now, so coming up to 50 very soon. And amongst my friends and wider circle, we've had a lot of conversations about what that means, and different people have dealt with it in different ways. So I was really keen to explore what that might mean for me in all sorts of different areas. The other aspect of this is that actually I'm a psychologist by training and as my day job, and I'm particularly interested in listening to people. I do a lot of that during my work in terms of coaching and so on. So it's really interesting because I'm hearing lots of midlife tales from the people that I coach. So it was both personal about me being at this stage and also reflecting some of the themes that I've been picking up through work.
And you decided, although you're approaching 50, most of them, am I right in assuming they're over 60?
They are.
So why over 60 and not over 50?
Well, I wanted to hear from people that where there was sufficient distance really from where I am.
Right.
So I thought if they're all at least 10 years older than me, then that gives me that it gives them enough distance to be able to look back at this stage rather than feeling that they're still in the throes of wrestling with it themselves. So that's what I set out to do.
And from the women that you interviewed, was the youngest about 60, and how old then would the oldest one have been?
Yep. The oldest, there were two of them that were in that oldest bracket who were in their mid-80s.
Right. And was there a big difference between how they viewed things in the mid-80s to how the ones in their 60s viewed things?
Not that great a difference, and I think what was interesting was that because the group ended up being fairly self-selecting, because I deliberately didn't try and find a sociologically representative sample. It was people that would step forward or people that I was drawn to for various reasons, and I think the key thing about that was it didn't really matter what their age was, because it was a lot about their zest for life really that came across. So that came across whether they were 60 or 85, and I'm sure would have done with 100-year-olds as well.
Oh, well, the thing is, they're saying now, though, aren't they, that 1 in 6 women turning 50, I think it is now, could well live to be 100. So,
I know.
Yes, in a few years' time, we'll have plenty of choice, I think, there, Sarah.
Yes. I can do it again when I'm turning 80, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, do that. Volume 2, yeah. So, I mean, from the conversations that you had, were there sort of 6 key tips that you could sort of draw from your conversations with them that you think that you and perhaps others would be able to learn from and apply to their own 50s and 60s?
Yes. Yeah, I think there were a number of things coming out of this. So I think for me, one of the top ones was not only about identifying priorities, which a lot of us are aware of, but it's actually acting on those as well, rather than thinking that we'll do that another day. So if we're kind of prioritising our friendships, for example, it's about actually acting on those and doing something about that now, rather than thinking it'll happen some other time. The second thing that really came out was something about nurturing our own vitality, really. So in terms of physical well-being and mental well-being, it was messages around things like exercise and eating well and so on, but it was also about being kind to ourselves and looking after ourselves and each other, which brings me on to the third point that really came out, is one about nurturing each other, about nurturing community and friendship. And that seemed to be extremely important as people were talking, that network of people that they had around them of all different ages and so on was a really key part of aging well. And it was both supportive and it was about giving support as well. It's very much a two-way process. I think one of the other points that was raised that was a really important one for me particularly as well was recognising when it's fear rather than choice that's holding us back from things.
Right.
So our comfort zone is a really comfortable place by definition. And sometimes it's absolutely fine to be within that and to have times where you're doing things that you do feel happy about doing and that are relaxing and so on. But sometimes it's important to venture outside of that and to really recognise, you know, if you want to be in it, be in it. But if you want to go out, it's about, if it's the fear that's stopping you go out, do something about that and actually carry on anyway.
And have you actually applied any of these things? I think that we've done 4, haven't you, so far? We should have 2 more, I think. But have you applied any of the 4 we've done so far? Have you applied any of those to your own life that you perhaps wouldn't have done prior to having those conversations?
Yes, I think it's been really interesting for me because it's really brought it into focus. So things like that, acting on priorities, I know for me there's been lots of things that have been things that I want to do and that I think are important that I never get round to doing somehow. So it's made me actually do that. So so far this year, I've been doing things like a more or less daily yoga routine, which I've always thought was a good idea, but I've never actually really put it into practice. So it's really helped me with doing things like that, as well as actually making a point of meeting up with various friends. I've done much more of that this year than I have done in the past, although it's always been a priority. It's about actually acting on it. So that's one thing. And the other point about that, recognising when it's fear and not choice that's holding us back, that's something that's sort of staying with me actually since I've done this book, and that when lots of things come up that you have the opportunity to do, I'm now much more aware of when my reaction is a fear-driven one rather than one that is an informed choice about what I'm doing.
And then the last 2 then, those first 4,
first 2? Yeah. The next one, the 5th one, I would say, is about focusing on actual rather than imagined events. That's not just about kind of events that you might be dreading, so you imagine a sort of a bad outcome to them, but it's also sometimes about managing excitement too. So I think lots of us can be prey to this in terms of events that we know that are coming up that we're really looking forward to. And sometimes we can imagine those in so much detail that when it actually gets to it, it's not quite how we thought it would be, and you sometimes miss the actual joy in the moment of doing things because you're so busy thinking about how it should be. So I'm very aware of that actually now, that it's really about focusing on what's actually happening rather than torturing yourself with the exciting or dreaded kind of outcomes to things. And then the last one, I think, really is about seeking and giving encouragement. It's about recognising that you don't have to be doing everything yourself. And I think we're often educated to feel that you have to be, you know, managing things yourself a lot, and it's very much a two-way process. So it's fine to go and ask for encouragement from people, and it's equally a valuable process to actually be very freely giving that encouragement to other people. And I think particularly for women, that sometimes we don't do that as much as we could. I think we're not always great at championing each other. And that's a useful one to learn, I think. But it applies to, you know, across the board. It's not just about women.
No, but I guess there are certain elements that women, we have a different approach to life, don't we, and a different way of looking at things than perhaps men with age. But I guess that could be a separate book for you about sort of talking to the 20 men over 60 instead of the women.
Yes.
So what's next for you then, Sarah? Your book is out now. What are your next plans?
My next plans are to continue to write in this kind of vein, because I'm deliberately writing the sorts of books that support my coaching and psychology business as well. So the next book at the moment is very much at an incubation stage, but what I'm hoping to do is to interview people about the real experience of work these days. So I'm hoping to find a broad range of people, men and women, particularly in that kind of mid-career stage, which is the age that I often work with, to really get under the surface about work means for them, as to what the real enjoyment and reward of that is, as well as what some of the possible downsides of work is, because we spend so much of our time doing it.
We do indeed, don't we? Well, thank you so much for showing up with us. So I just want to recap again. Your book is called Bolder and Wiser, and I'll put a link to the interview and the book when we post this on the website. And I'm sure it's going to do really, really well. And thank you so much for sharing that, and also sharing your experience putting the tips into practice as well. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you very much.